What's up everybody, Zach Hawkins back with another video. I'm so glad that you're here. I know it seems like I'm in a bit of a mess. It's early on a Saturday morning and I'm gearing up for a wedding today. The first of many over the next several weeks. The fall wedding season has officially begun. I'm super excited. I'm gonna try out some different things during this fall season that I think is just gonna be totally awesome and really help step my game up for future business. And so I'm really excited. I'm glad that you're here and that you're gonna be here for the whole process. It's gonna be awesome. So we're gonna talk about things like shutter speed, ISO, aperture, exposure, all these things, how they harmonize together, when to focus on using different ones, like when should I be more focused on shutter speed than aperture, or aperture rather than shutter speed, or how high do I wanna take my ISO, or all these questions that you might have. And some of them you may not know anything about, and that's cool because we're going to break it down over the next few weeks, and we're going to try to cover them pretty thoroughly so you have a better understanding. But for now, that's what we're going to do. Got my coffee, early Saturday, I'm struggling this morning, but we're going to pack up this bag. We are going to compress this bag. That's something different, right? It's decompressed, you get it, you got it. All right, here we go. If you do not have one of these awesome little contraptions right here, the more accessories that you get that you got to take apart and stuff, you need one of these. This is from Small Rig. This is a Small Rig tool. So you just got all your Allen head, your Phillips head, flathead, everything that you need all in one convenient little thing. Totally awesome. You definitely need one of these. You gotta have one. You just have to have one all the time. Oh yeah, picked this up last week, the Mavic 2 Pro. This thing is pretty freaking awesome. And I cannot wait to do a review on this thing. I know I said in one video before that the Mavic Air was just unreal, it was amazing, small and compact, and it was, don't get me wrong, I love the Mavic Air, but this thing's still pretty small and compact, and the image quality is just so much better and the features are so much better. We're gonna talk about that later. And that's pretty much it. What's up everybody? We're back and we're ready to get started in this episode of Decompress. So like I said before, is what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks is talking about the fundamentals of photography. I want to help you master the craft, and for those of you that are just getting started, or maybe you've been started for a little while and you're trying to figure out how all these things work, like your aperture, your shutter speed, your ISO, your exposure, all these different things you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out how they harmonize together, when to be more focused on what, and we're going to talk about that. That's what we're going to start with this week is aperture. Now, aperture is like the thing that we're all most intrigued about for the most part, especially if you're looking at getting into like family portraits or weddings or stuff like that. Aperture is the big deal. So, you want that nice creamy background. That's what we all want. And it's called bokeh or bokeh or however you say it, because nobody, I think, knows how to actually say that word, because you hear it said 15,000 different ways from all sorts of different people. And so that doesn't matter. I call it bokeh. Basically, it is the blur that is in the background that you want, that you love. You know, we all just, it's like an addiction almost, like we love that. And so like when you take a picture and you got that nice creamy background and it's back there behind your subject and your subject's just popping off the screen, that's like crack. That is like literal crack that you get excited about and you want more of it. That is bokeh, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So how does Aperture work? So basically the way the Aperture works is if you look inside of your camera lens, you have blades. You have Aperture blades. And so let me see if I can adjust this here so you can see inside of this 85 millimeter G Master lens. And so is what I'm going to do, this has got a clickable aperture ring, so I can adjust my aperture on the lens also, which helps you so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. So if you look inside, you see that little bitty dot in there right now, right in the center of this lens. That is how much light is coming in. It's not very much. Those blades are closed down a whole lot at f/16. So right now, if I was to take a picture, especially indoors, then you wouldn't be able to see anything. It would be totally black because it's letting in so little light, and there's not a lot of ambient light in this room right now other than the light that's hitting me from this Aperture 120D continuous light. Now, if you were outside shooting and you were shooting a landscape, you could definitely shoot at f/16, especially on a bright sunny day. And there would be plenty of light there. You would have plenty of depth of field. You would have all that you would need to take the picture that you needed. So anyway, so looking down the barrel of this lens, f/16, there's very, very little light that's being let in. But as I start dropping this f-stop, you can start seeing this aperture start opening up on the inside. Now once we get down to 1.4, the blades are almost all the way open and it's letting in all the light that it can possibly let in. And so also what you have to keep in mind with Aperture is the lower that your f-stop number is, the more shallow the depth of field is. And so say you were going to take a picture of someone's face. And with these Sony cameras, you have an awesome feature called eye autofocus. You basically point it at your subject, you push a button, it finds their eye, it locks onto their eye, and it stays on there. It's an awesome feature that's just totally changed the game. But if I use this eye autofocus and it grabs a hold of someone's eye and I'm shooting at an aperture or f-stop of 1.4 and I take a picture and I'm pretty close to my subject, then their eye may be crystal clear, but even by the time that you got to the eyelashes, they would start to blur, and by the time you got to the tip of the nose, it would be very blurred, and it's just not a good picture. And so is what you would have to do is you would have to back down your f-stop a little bit to increase your depth of field. So the lower that your f-stop number is, the blurrier the background is, but also the shallower of the depth of field that you can shoot with. So now that depth of field will increase if you put more distance between you and your subject. So if I'm shooting right up on my subject with this 85 millimeter lens, I think it's got a focal length of like a minimum of 3 feet. So say I took full advantage and I got as close as I could with this 85 millimeter lens at 3 feet away from my subject at a f1.4, and I took the picture, the eye would be crystal clear, but everything in front of that and everything behind that surface, that plane of the eye, would be blurry. It would start to blur more and more the further that you got away from that one spot. And so sometimes you have to adjust or put more distance between you and your subject in order to accommodate that depth of field. Now, for me, I pretty much always shoot at a 1.4. Pretty much always. Now my 135 G Master lens only goes down to an f1.8, and so obviously I can't go any lower than that, but I always typically shoot at the lowest aperture that I can, unless I'm shooting like a group of people and there's some like depth that's there. So if I'm shooting like a wedding party and say they're stacked 3 deep, well, I'm not going to be able to shoot at a 1.8 unless I just get like totally on the other side of the venue, and that doesn't make for a good picture. Plus you're yelling across the venue, so at that point it's time to, drop your aperture or lower your f-stop. Take it back down to like a, depends, if you're stacked 3 deep, you might be shooting at like a, I don't know, a little over 4 or maybe even a 5.6, just depends. So you kind of got to gauge that. And so it takes practice. Like, you got to go out, you got to shoot, you got to practice, try different things, put your camera, like, get it out of auto mode, put the thing in aperture mode where you're just focused on aperture, and let it adjust your shutter speed and everything else. See how that works. Then switch over to shutter speed mode and do all these things. Try your camera, test your camera. Don't just stay in auto. Get out, learn how to shoot manual. There are so many benefits to shooting manual. That's all I ever shoot in. It's pretty rare that I even shoot in aperture priority. I always shoot in manual all the time, and I love it. It gives me the freedom, the creativity that's involved. Let's take a couple of test shots and let's just kind of see what we're talking about here in terms of f-stop and how that depth of field really works. So as what I've got is I've got this 85mm G Master 1.4, and I've also got this Shinobi Ninja 5 monitor, so you're going to be able to see whatever I see in my camera, and that's going to help me to demonstrate this. So as what we're going to do, we're going to take a few shots here. So here we go. We've got the camera at a 1.4 aperture. We're going to be focused on this Mavic 2 logo, and there we go. So you can see that the second half of Mavic 2 is pretty clear, but even the M starts to go ahead and blur because of that shallow depth of field. So now if I increase to an f2, you can see that everything gets a lot darker. So I also am going to have to adjust my ISO on this one to bring up the light sensitivity. Now, the higher that my ISO is, the more grainy that the image is going to be. So I always want to keep my ISO as low as possible. So here we go. Focus back on Mavic 2 and click. Now you can see here how the depth of field has increased a little bit because the first part of Mavic is a little bit clearer now than it was before. Now we're going to go up one more stop of light to f2.8, and once again I've got to increase my ISO to accommodate, and here we go, focus on Mavic 2, and there we go. So, and we can keep increasing this. We can keep going up. We go up to f1.4, the next stop of light up, and you can see, you can even start to see inside of this on my monitor here that as I keep going up, it keeps getting more and more grainy, even though the image is, the depth of field is getting bigger and bigger. So it's it just takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out what works for you. We all have different styles, and you have to find your own style. I encourage you, you can find inspiration from other photographers and other creatives out there, but find your own style. That is so important. Find your own style, find what works for you. What works for me is always shooting at the lowest aperture as possible. It gives me the look that I absolutely love. That's kind of it in a nutshell when it comes to aperture or f-stop. If you got any questions, I would absolutely love to hear from you. I would love to answer any questions that you have about aperture, f-stop, or if there's anything that you would like to see, any other tutorials that you would like to see. Is there something that you're struggling with right now in your photography that you think that, you know, a little bit of demonstration would help, you know, put you over that edge? Let me know, drop it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to make a video about it and try to break that down and help you out. So that is the whole point of this channel, is to help you grow in your photography, to take you to the place that you want to be, that creative freedom that we all want so bad. So I'm so glad that you all are sticking with me, and so let's just talk about it. Drop some comments, subscribe, smash that bell, and be notified whenever I'm posting new videos. I know I'm a few days late this week. I worked some crazy long hours. I'm still a full-time electrician for right now until I dip out of that and go full-time into weddings. And hopefully that'll be in the next little bit. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week with more. We're going to talk about shutter speed next week. So we'll see you then. See ya.